Hey everyone, this is Jake, and I'm here with Grant Brogy, who is the founder of The Strength Co., which is especially known for their Made in America iron plates, and they've quickly expanded into more equipment. He's also a starting strength coach and a veteran. So Grant, thank you so much for being here. I really appreciate you giving us the time.
Yeah, glad to be here. Thanks. I like your garage. Nice setup there.
Thank you. Just need some Strength Co. plates.
That's it. Just need to upgrade an iron.
All right, so before we get into the Strength Co. story, can you just give a little background about yourself, including an explanation about your experience in the military?
Sure. So my kind of background with all of this is I started weightlifting like a normal person, 15, 16 years old, lifting weights and always kind of liked the gym. Went to college, got really into CrossFit, like doing that. And that's kind of where I found Mark Ripito, who was writing for the CrossFit Journal at the time. And I was like, oh, a lot of this stuff makes sense. And then as I went into the Marine Corps, I didn't really think about it. I had never kind of run, a progressive overload program. As I got in the Marine Corps, I'm an artillery officer. And I kind of got my first platoon of Marines in 2011 or 12. And I remember I checked in and the CO was like, 90 days from now we'll be in Afghanistan or some amount of days. And I was like, oh, wow. So he's like, here's your platoon, here's your roster, you're going to train these guys. And the main thing that I noticed was how weak they were. And when we hike, when we, do strenuous things that are, combined with field artillery, people were getting hurt, people were throwing out their backs. And so I kind of just thought, what's the best way to fix this? And so I went back actually to look at some Ripto articles in the squat, and I was like, oh, there's this book now. And so I got the book, and I had watched his DVD and stuff, but that was probably when I really got into it. And so I kind of cut my teeth in this industry training my Marines for combat, right? That's how I started coaching. That's how I started, paying attention to equipment and, all that stuff.
Got it. And would you say that most of your fellow officers they just didn't really know how to handle a barbell when you first got into it with them, or what was their experience like?
Yeah. So for two kind of realms in the military, officer ranks and the enlisted ranks. So in the Marine Corps in general, it has a very run-centric mentality, jogging, running. The physical fitness test, which what you score on it affects your promotion, which affects your pay, which affects your life, has a 3-mile run. And so, running a mile, pretty much anybody can do. Running 2 miles, you could do it if you had to. Running 3 miles quickly, you have to train for a little bit. So most Marines have just never thought of lifting weights as their reason for physical fitness. So most of the enlisted Marines, I had some guys that were, meatheads and gym guys, but they just never thought of hey, how do I properly execute a deadlift? How do I properly do a squat? Had no idea of stress recovery adaptation. How do I make progress and actually get stronger? And so I kind of trained up 3 or 4, the sergeants, kind of the higher up guys. And then, we'd all go to the gym a few days a week, and I'd kind of be walking around as the, young, dumb lieutenant helping out. And then I'd have the sergeants, training the junior Marines. And, the 70% solution makes a whole bunch of progress, right? If they're walking to the gym and deadlifting and attempting to add 5 pounds 3 days a week and you're 18 and you weigh 160 pounds, you're going to make a bunch of progress. So it worked pretty well.
Makes sense. A lot of running, I'm sure push-ups and pull-ups as well. That's what I usually think of. Yeah. So when did you take it to the next level and actually become a strength coach?
So I kept training, Marines, and more and more guys would ask about it. I remember we did this field day one year, and I was in Tango Battery, and there was a tug of war and a Humvee pull, and we just crushed everyone in the battalion, and everyone was like, "Oh, that's because you're on that lifting program," and so it kind of started create a buzz. And so I got an opportunity. I didn't realize how valuable it was, but to coach a lot of people, because when I try and help coaches come up, the main thing that they don't have is because they don't have any credentials, is they don't have any clients. And so they got to go convince, their friends or their mom or someone to hey, let me coach you. Because how do you get good at coaching? Well, you have to coach and get experience. So I didn't realize how valuable that was. So I was doing that, and then I got stationed up in Seal Beach, and the starting strength came to LA to do a seminar. I was like, I'm going to go test out. This is 2016. So I went and took their test and passed, got listed on their website. And then that alone, the phone started ringing in my garage. And I would coach like either a Saturday or Sunday, every weekend. And I think I made like 6 slots. And then at one point, I was booked out like 6 weeks or something. And I thought, oh, maybe I should do something about this. So that was about 2017. I opened the first gym.
Were you done in the military, or what was your time?
I was still in. I just kind of wanted it as a test, and so I opened and hired right away. And I would work in there nights unless I was, it was a weird time to start a business for me. I was like going to the Republic of Georgia a lot, so there was a lot of like me being back and forth. But I got it off the ground. I wanted to see, like, you could be a personal training coach and train people in your garage. But, like, once you, like, open a brick and mortar facility, then you really find out, like, how much do people want to do this? And for me, what I'm selling, I mean, we have people just using the facility. Margot's in here deadlifting right now. But what I'm selling is coaching, right? Like, hey, so, yeah, I was still on the service, so it was a very busy time. But, yeah, 2017 opened the first gym, and then the second one in late 2018. Yes, there's 2 locations out here.
Okay, and then when did you get out of the military?
I got out in November of 19. I had kind of built the gyms up. They were doing well. I got out in November of 19. And I was like, okay, now I'm really going to fill these things. Like, I got time to, like, actually think about, like, marketing and, ad spend and all this stuff. And then, obviously, 2020 came. And, yeah, everything changed.
Right, that leads up into the next question. From what it sounds like, you were pretty much ready to go with a nice, solid business, and then boom, 2020 hits. So that's obviously when you had the first idea of creating equipment. Could you give a little bit more background as to, like, why you actually went for it? Because from my end, it seems like still somewhat of a risky thing to do, a lot of upfront costs. So, yeah, if you could just give a little background as to why you went for it.
Yeah. So for me, my initial thought was this. I have high touch members. So they're paying for a premium service, personal coaching every time they walk in the door. And the price points is such that it's not like, oh yeah, like I pay, $20 a month for this. It's like, oh, if I'm not going, I'm not paying. And that's what we don't want you to pay anyway if you're not going. So my initial thought was, okay, I'll just spread all my equipment out to people. And so that's what I started with, was I pulled all the power racks up out of here. We kind of like actually mapped out members. And we're like, okay, if we put this in this garage, then, like these 5 families are all friends. Like they can go by and use it. Yeah, it was kind of funny. So we started doing that. And, each gym has 8 power racks. So you got 150 members, 16 power racks didn't go very far. So we started making stuff I'd made in the Marine Corps, like, Home Depot wooden squat stand. Started doing that, and I was just putting them in members' houses. And then LA Times did like a piece on the story, and then people started emailing, can we buy these things? And I'm like, you want to buy a Home Depot concrete wooden, like, whatever? And so, like, I sold some to people that I knew, or if they were friends of a friend. But then I was like, I can't, like the wood's going to split and I'm going to get sued. So then we started, buying steel from the local spot and welding it up in a garage and, just making some basic stands. But as everyone knows, at that time, there was nothing available, right? So we were going for that. And then I was buying wholesale, buying whole warehouses of weights. I remember the first time that I was like, whoa, I went in and they had like 7,000 pounds of, you name it, bumpers, kettlebell, like dumbbell, like all this stuff. And I was like, I'll take all of it for 50 cents a pound or something. Mm-hmm. And they sold it to me for 50 cents a pound. And stuff was beat up or whatever. And then, our website chat would be blowing up. People in New York, hey, can I buy 45s? Hey, can I do this? I had some NFL guys hit me up on Twitter because I posted like, a gym like with all this equipment, like, yo, dog, let me get some of those weights. Oh. And this is still March. This is all within like 10 days. So I was like, okay, the biggest vacuum out of all this is iron. And I had frustrations with iron before. I remember when I opened the first gym, I bought a bunch of Yorks, and they were all like 1.5 inches too short. Sold those and got machined Yorks, but like the paint chipped really bad. And so there were some things that I had not liked. And so I started looking at them like, how does one make weights? right? Like what's the process? I didn't know anything about making weights. Yeah, so I started at that point kind of calling foundries, emailing foundries, and, went through a couple. First quotes were too high, some were too slow. And then I filled out a form on Wapaka Foundry, largest foundry in the country, and, said, hey, I used some news articles kind of showing that, there was like a little bit of a buzz. And I was like, I'd like to make a plate, can someone call me? And the next day I got a phone call, and that kind of started that process.
Before you started that, had you thought of things like adding them to your website and shipping them? I guess you had you played with that a little bit.
Yeah, so a little bit. So when the NFL guys, for instance, hit me up, I was like, all right, sure. So, I boxed up whatever, but we just didn't know anything. I remember taking 245s, shrink wrapping the crap out of them, and then cardboard, who knows where it came from, folding it, taping it, duct tape. It looked like you're mailing a bomb. And now I look back, I'm like, why on earth would you ship 90 pounds at a time? There's a surcharge after you cross 50. Actually, after you cross 49 and a half. So 45s are way cheaper to ship as singles. The first squat rack I shipped, somebody on Twitter asked me for a welded version. And I was like, all right, let me see if I can do it. I go to this custom box guy to get the box made, right? Because there's so much more than just the product itself. But so we get this custom box made. We go, and it looks like a coffin. And I stuff this thing in it, and I put the thing for sale, but it doesn't calculate shipping. And then the guy checks out, and I don't remember what he paid. So I take it to FedEx. I go to FedEx, and I go to ship it. It's like $388 to ship it to San Francisco, and which was more. I think I was selling the rack for $300. So I called him, and I was like, "Hey, look, I'm about to ship this thing. It's $388. I told you I thought it'd be around $100. I was like, I really want to do it because I know it'll force me to figure it out. I'll split it with you 50-50." And he was like, done. And so I charged him for half of the shipping cost, and and the first one was out the door.
Interesting. So I guess that's how desperate people were.
Yeah, really desperate.
But back to the foundry. So you got in contact with them, and they're like, all right, let's do it. Can you go back to that? And what were the next steps after that?
Yeah, so, they needed me to submit, CAD drawings and designs and stuff. And so I chatted with Rip a whole bunch in terms of he's just got a wealth of knowledge on the stuff. And basically I wanted to make those older Yorks, but with a deeper lip to grab onto. I didn't know what I wanted to do on coating yet. So we came up with the design, the size. We started with just 45s, 25s, 10s, 5, 2.5s. So we came up with all of it and sent them the drawings. Well, then they got to look and see, based off the different, strengths and PSIs and stuff. Hey, can you make a 2.5 pound casting? Will it, hold up? All these different things. And then I was learning a lot too. I was studying a bunch of foundries. Okay, there's this thing called a pattern or tooling that I actually own that the foundry stores, and every time they run, a strength code 45, they take it off and they put it on this machine. Oh, that up front cross just for that thing before you've made a plate is a whole bunch of money. And then, each time you run a plate, there's a minimum run. So I can't say hey, I want 145. I don't know the numbers off the top of my head, but it's I got to run 545s. Right. Well, then say, okay, now I got to run this. So I'm running all the numbers, right? And I'm just trying to think of how it works. And the other thing is inventories and quantities. You're also limited by how can I truck it, right? So how can I truck it from the foundry to the machine shop, from the machine shop to the eco facility, from the eco facility to the distribution center? Well, I'm limited by this 44,000 pounds number. And since I'm literally selling weights, it's a constantly massaging game that I was learning of. Okay, because I wasn't ready capital wise or interest wise to do a truck of 45s, right? So I'd be okay, this many 45s and then this, and then here's the weight of the pallet. You're figuring that out. So they came back with a quote, and I went through it, and I was I don't it makes sense, right? I'm running the numbers. I'm okay, I gotta sell this many, and then I'll pay off the tooling, and then by the second or third run, And then my
What?
gyms were gyms were just every day cancel, 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 cancel. So I mean, I had some stuff savings. I refinanced my house and I went for it.
I was gonna say if you can say what is that number? Is it like 50,000, 100,000?
Like 150,000. Yeah.
Man.
So it's yeah, it was. There wasn't a lot of sleeping going on.
Right, that's quite a bit.
So, and that was to do it right, you know, and that was the
Right.
thing. It was like, if you're going to do it, and also like to rush it, you know, to get it out, you know, quickly. So that we started, I think I finally got that foundry. So we started doing this junk in March. I think the first week of May, like we had drawings to the foundry and we started shipping plates in August. So, you know, it was pretty quick.
Got it. So I have here, so what did the full first year end up looking like? But I'd actually be curious to hear, like, what are some of the lessons you learned between March and August, I guess, if that was kind of the first time you started shipping?
Yeah, so the first thing was design. So, you know, you make the tooling, and when you're just looking at a picture of this, you know, for instance, I just posted the 35s. We just poured our first 35 yesterday. It was about 2 weeks ago. I posted a picture of the tooling, and you know, it's just this ductile iron thing on a steel plate, and you like think you know what it's going to look like, but that's much different than like when you see someone holding it. So, for instance, on the 45s and the 25s, you know, I had approved everything. Everything's good. We're running, and the first 45s get poured, and they send me a photo, and I'm like, oh no. And the lip face is like huge. It looked like a clown plate or something. And I said, like someone hold it, take a photo, and it was going to be like too hard to grip. And so I was like, I was super worried about it. I didn't think it was right. And I was, you know, asking different people, and they're like, oh, it's fine. You know, like if it's accurate, whatever. So I'm asking the foundry. They're like, well, we can retool it, you know, but it's like another 12,000 or something to, you know, retool this thing. And so that was another thing, right? You're already like strapped. You haven't even sold anything yet. But I was like, I think it's the right choice. Like, you know, and I'm so glad I did. So I retooled that one. I retooled the 25. So they have that thinner lip. So like that was a mistake. Not a mistake. I mean, a mistake that we then maybe fixed. But, you know, just when you're new in manufacturing, you know, not understanding some of those things. And then shipping and distribution is probably where we've like learned the most and, you know, made the most mistakes. So I needed to get capital flowing. So I started in July pre-sailing. So I created like a sign up, right? And all this is happening. You're also like, the website's like growing and like you're having to like update all those things, you know, as you've grown. So it's like all kind of, you know, growing pains going on. I started pre-selling in July. And so then my first truck comes in August. Everything on it sold. Like every single plate in the first run is sold. So we get it, and everyone's mad, right? Because I said I was going to release like August 15th. And then, you know, the foundry has an issue and this and that. And so I ended up getting it out in August. But it's like the 28th or something. But it's like the 16th comes. Then was like, where are my plates? I played for these July 7th, blah, blah, blah. And so it's like really like stressful. You're new at all this. And so it would land it. I remember that first truck landed at like, it came in and the drivers called me. I was going to unload it at like midnight. They called me at like 11 and they're like, oh, we're going to stop in Fontana, which is like an hour away. Like, we'll be there in the morning. I'm like, you got to be kidding me. So they come like Saturday morning at like 5 a.m. We unload it. I had the team there and we just immediately began boxing. And so, you know, the 45s, we had started with pairs. We created a custom box, double wall, 200 pound. And the idea was you lay a 45, you put a piece of 12 by 12 U-line foam on, then you put another 45, and you slide the pair into the box, you tape it up and ship it. Well, really dumb. So immediately, we're shipping like that though anyway, and stuff's crashing, stuff's, you know, breaking apart. Most people actually weren't mad in the early days when there were shipping errors because they just wanted weights so bad. But, you know, we were messing things up. I remember having a pallet, like 15 pallets of finished goods ready to go, waiting on a FedEx tractor trailer to show up. And my buddy John came by to help me with something with the website, and he looks at that and he goes, wow, you're going to test your shipping methods with 44,000 pounds? And I was like, I have no option. So, you know, and then not to mention like 90 pounds in a box, like I mentioned earlier, is stupid. Like you should just do 45s as singles. So you just don't know. And it's not like, you know, you have a FedEx rep and all that stuff, but they don't know, right? They actually, I mean, they know a lot of things, but they're not familiar with this product, or at least, you know, my guys weren't, or UPS too. You know, I use them both. But so that was where I'd say, you know, we learned a lot of like, okay, you know, put it like 45s need to ship as singles, 25s need to ship as singles. If you put it in a 6 mil poly bag, it's going to really protect it a whole lot more. I mean, a big mistake we made was, you know, a lot of people would buy 2 sets of 10s, 5s, and 2.5s. And so at the time we thought the fewer packages being shipped, the cheaper, you know, cost. So we would take 4 10-pound plates, 2 pairs, and put them in a box that was like 10 by 10 by 4. And then we would take 5s and 2.5s and put them in, I think it was like an 8 by 8 by 4 something box. Well, I have one of those poly strapping machines. So I'm like, we'll just put one box on top of the other and strap it. So we put the label on, sometimes on the 10 by 10 by 4, sometimes on the, you know, 8 by 8 or whatever it was. We strap them together. We start getting blown up with emails. Hey, I ordered 2 10s, 5s, and 2.5s, and only 5s and 2.5s came. Hey, I ordered 10s and 5s and 2.5s, and only 10s came. Only 5s and 2.5s came. Only 10s came. So they all were breaking apart, but we had only labeled one side. And so, I mean, we caught that one pretty quick, but I don't know, who knows how many pounds. I'd have to go back and look that we lost. But shipping, you just didn't know.
With that, like 44,000 pounds, did you ship them all, or did you have some left over just in case people shipped them?
Every single plate, and I was still behind. And then people were begging to pre-order, and I was just saying like, hey, like I'll take your money. Like, I don't know exactly the timeline. So we're in constant production. So then the September truck rolls, it's all sold. October rolls, it's all sold. And so we're kind of like building some steam. We're learning shipping. And then in like February or March of 21, I get a truckload of 45s in, and the E-coats like bubbled on the whole thing on the edge. And so I call the foundry. I'm like, you know, what's going on? And then they tried, you know, first tell me it's like industry standard, you know, that happens. And I'm like, hey, like we've made whatever, 160,000 pounds thus far, and it's never looked like this. So like what changed? And so then, you know, they're a huge company. So it's like, stop, go through the quality department, you know, this, that. And so we're like starting to lose time. And so customers are getting angry, but I'm like, we got to get the product right. I mean, I actually shipped all those plates back to the foundry, made them sandblast the whole thing. I ended up taking over e-coating ourselves, like the foundry doesn't handle it for us, and moved it to another location and lost my shorts on that batch of plates. But I thought it was the right thing to do. I'm like, you can't have these things, you know, out there. People ask me all the time, like, do you have factory seconds, you know, factory defects that I can buy at a discount? I'm like, no, we fix everything, or you know, I don't want it out.
Got it. So back to that first time after you shipped it, after your first shipment of 44,000, do you have like a success rate of the customers that got their shipment? And were you already rolling on the second order, or were you like kind of hesitant to do it again?
Yeah, I was already rolling the second order, but it was really weird to manage. And I'll explain a little bit how it's still kind of a chess game managing it. That's why I opened in July with the pre-sales, because I was like, if nothing else, it'll give me data of like how many people actually want to pay this. You know, are they going to pay the shipping costs? Because we were only shipping out of California at the time. So you're in the West Coast, hey, not so bad, even though we were shipping, you know, like we didn't know what we were doing. But if you're in Florida, you know, shipping's like through the roof. Plus, you don't have great rates yet. You know, back then, how much had I shipped? Not much. So FedEx is like, it's essentially, even though you're a business, of retail pricing. Now, you walk into I don't know, maybe you ship much stuff, but your average person walks into FedEx and, you know, puts a 45-pound plate in a box. I pay probably like 40% of that when we ship. And so we just pass all that directly to the consumer, right? Because my kind of goal has always been like shipping as low as possible. Because people will pay for a premium product. They hate paying shipping. But this business, hey, you just ordered a 465-pound set. Like, it's got to, like, logistics have to happen. So anyway, we had already had that next order going, and then was just trying to manage capital, production, purchases. I mean, there were some times it got like really tight, and then we'd get the product in, and it would sell. And I would say the first August to like January were probably the wildest in terms of managing, finances, inventories, all that stuff, sales, not overselling. And then because other things will happen. You run, 2,000 tens. And so you put in inventory, okay, I'm going to have 1,000 pairs of tens and put them for sale. Well, in the foundry, like when they run it, for whatever reason, they run, 1,841. And so then you get it and you're short like 60 sets, right?
Mm-hmm.
And then so then it lands and you're like, well, who are the 30 guys I'm not going to ship to? And we just always went oldest to newest.
Right.
But so it's little things like that. And just the average person has like no idea. Why would they? Why would they're in an Amazon society, click, it's there the next day, but they have no idea of all that goes into it. And so, yeah, it was interesting.
Yeah. So during that time, I can't remember how it aligns with Rogue also starting to create plates made in America. But while you were doing this, were you keeping an eye on them, or did you beat them to it? I can't remember.
I did in design and production. We were there first, which I think really helped. Not by much, though. Another account posted, I don't remember if it was our first sample or our first tooling or something. And then I noticed the very next day they posted something like that this is in production. And then the only thing that I did that was very beneficial to us was I released the whole line at once. And they released just a little bit after me, but only 45s and 25s. So that was another challenging deal for us because, everyone knows who they are. Not everyone knows who the strength code is. So they go and buy these 45s and 25s, and then there's like a buzz in the internet like, oh, if you buy strength code change plates, they match. Well, when I first did inventories for runs, I thought people were going to be buying all from me. So all of a sudden, it's like I can't make 10s, 5s, and 2.5s fast enough. And then the longer we were on the market, I mean, to each their own. But then a lot of people were like, oh, this 45 is way thinner. And so it was just managing those numbers. Of course I was keeping an eye on it because no one else made in USA cast iron plates. Nobody.
Right.
And so, I had to, not even just like, hey, I want to do well, but I got to see all right, when's this supply chain thing ever going to end? Is it going to end for imports? Who am I competing with? Because last thing you want to do is be left with the bag of 100,000 pounds of weights and no one wants them.
Yeah.
So, that's, of course I was taking a look.
Right. So when did your gym open back up again?
I opened Memorial Day, and so I closed March 17th. I opened, I think it was May 28th. It was illegal. I was like, whatever. A news crew came out and filmed it, because it was illegal. But it was tough. The gym business, I mean, it just got rocked. And honestly, until about the last 2-3 months, I mean, 2021 was terrible.
Especially in California.
Not what I was used to. Yeah, especially in California. Yeah.
How's your time been split over the past, I guess, 2 years now? Yeah,
that's wild. I mean, everyone's got their story of the last 2 years, but I feel like I got out of the Marine Corps and blinked and there's an equipment line and Jake's at my booth at the Arnold, right? I never thought I'd be at the Arnold with a product, right? It seems like it just happened overnight. But yeah, now, I mean, so I guess the way to phrase that is the biggest thing I've tried to do is distribute the product. So we ship out of California, we ship out of Wisconsin, we ship out of Georgia. We're about to be shipping out of Texas. We tried the Northeast for a little bit, but the guys up there just didn't work out. I even pretend when you go to buy plates, right? You're like, okay, I want 2 pairs of 45s. Goes into the system, 18 by 18 by 2, 45 pounds, 1, 2, 3, 4 boxes, going to zip code X. Okay, if it's going to that zip code, then it's shipping out of Wisconsin. Boom, here's a price. Show you. That's what's happening. When that little thing spins, and you're waiting for the shipping to populate. So I, like, for instance, to this day, have a fake Pennsylvania where we used to be warehouse, just because and I just eat the shipping. I just lose a little. I cut my margins down because I wanted to be able to ship to the Northeast, and hopefully I'll get up there at some point. So if you're in Rhode Island, if you're paying X because it thinks you're shipping from Pennsylvania, it's actually shipping from Wisconsin or Georgia, and but it was worth it, right? I mean, I think that's to get the product out there. But so my time, how's it split? I still work in the gyms and coach in the gyms, but basically mornings and evenings, 3 days a week, like I'm dealing with clients, whether in the gym or like online. In the middle of those days, I'm in my warehouse, and then I have 2 full days where it's just completely on this side of things. But a lot of stuff's, outsourced and not, doesn't take as much as you think. Like we run our warehouse out here with 3 people, and that's all you need. And then in Georgia, I mean, our little, it's a big fulfillment company, but our little piece uses like 2 or 3 people. So yeah, it's definitely been interesting. And, when you're with time zones and stuff, coaching can become stressful because obviously if I'm coaching a client, I want to like give them my full attention, but the founder's calling you, you're getting emails from something, and you're doing a podcast and stuff. So it never really stops, but it's fun. I mean, I wouldn't have it any other way.
You're full out hustling right now.
Yeah, I guess so.
Yeah. So I'd be curious to hear what all does Strength Co. sell today, and what was the reasoning behind adding new products?
At the time, the demand was so high, it made sense to make racks and stuff like this. The problem is you watch steel in 2021 go up like 300%. And so it went from, I had a power rack, $350, powder coated out the door, my cost or something. I don't remember what it was. I mean, and literally all of a sudden I'm like, hey, I want another run of 50. And they came back with a quote, and it was like the same price that I was selling for retail. And so I was like, whoa. So I stopped that for a while. And then basically I wanted to be able to sell weights, bars, collars, and plate trees. Because if you're on the store, right, you don't want to like go here, then go there. So you want like, okay, I want to buy my weights. I want to get my bar. I want to get my collars. And then racks, we still do, not near as many and not a focus. And I'd actually might want to stop. I only like selling racks and benches and stuff if someone wants to come and buy the home gym package. So it's like the whole deal all at once, at one click. And so that's really the only reason I even carry those. But our main products are plates, bars, and our collars are actually really popular, which is surprising.
Got it. Okay, and I'd love to just hear from you, what, outside of simply made in America, what separates your plates from everyone else on the market?
Yeah, I mean, so being thin and their width, I think, is probably the biggest deal. I mean, you were there at the Arnold watching Dan Bell pull 800. You can't do that with bumper plates or with other style plates. So being thin was like the main goal. Being a deep flat lip, so a lot of the imports where you go to put your fingers, that's curved or like beveled, and so like you can't grip onto anything. So that would be it with that. Like matching, for like especially the home gym enthusiasts, like people are they like things that look nice. So sometimes you have one style for these bigger plates and the smaller ones look different. So I always say, kind of joking, kind of true, my favorite plate's the 1.25. And I think of it because I look at it when I hold it, I'm like, this is just like the 45, except it's 1.25. And as a coach, I'm used to this being like a washer or something. And so I wanted that, like, kind of consistency. We went with the 1.99 inch inner diameter. So barbell sleeves are supposed to be 1.95, so made that really tight tolerance, which overall has been good, but has presented a few of its own issues from time to time. So when you first get a 45, so that when E-coat happens, there's a hook inside that center hub, right? It goes down into this bath and comes up and then goes in to get baked. So when they take it off the hook, there's a mark where there's no E-coat. So they take a touch-up gun and they touch up that center, and then they go flat through another heater. So a lot of times you actually have a little bit of excess E-coat on the center hub. So what I found is like weeder bars, cap bars, like your cheaper chrome, bars. Every now and then, of all the plates we've sold, it's under 10. Probably 5 people have ever said the plates don't fit my bar. And some of it'll be that, or sometimes, it'll be stiff. Like when I fill up this gym with the plates, the first week it's like, whoa, it's like a little slow. Well, now it's all, smooth. It actually wears in and becomes really nice. I'm a big fan of the tight tolerance. And most people are. I don't know, there's something like 400 5-star reviews, and like that's probably the number one comment is that people like that. And it also just it makes us different in another way. So yeah, I'd say those are probably the elements. The E-coat finish is nice. I played with a lot of finishes. I played with powder coat. I tried a clear coat. E-coat really only comes in black. I haven't been able to find anyone that would do another color. But like I've tested soft grip, the stuff they use to paint sewer lines that go under the ground. I've tested like all these different coatings, and like in terms of durability, you can't beat the E-coat, and particularly because of the E-coat's process of it goes through the baths, alkaline baths, this rust prevention baths. So even if like over time you're gonna have cosmetic defects on E-coat, but it's not gonna rust because of the layers of treatment that happen before it even gets the coating.
Yeah, that makes sense. I've been a big fan of eco stuff in my gym outside of the barbell coating. Okay, so speaking of barbells, what about your barbells? What can you tell me about them? Is there anything that separates them from what most people sell?
Yeah. So we wanted F3. The first one we did, basically, being in Southern California, and I know some people like it, but once I got into retail, I was like, I do not want to do bare steel. For instance, when we first started doing racks, we were shipping bare steel racks, and the customer service for people in humid or hot climates was, why is this thing rusting? It's like, well, it's bare steel. That's why it's rusting. But like, you do not want to deal with that, or I did not want to deal with that in the customer service. And I personally hated it in my gym. Once a month, I had to come in here with these bare steel bars and like bust rush and 3-in-1 oil. And I totally understand that some people like that sort of thing, right? I totally get that. And I tell people all the time, if you are one guy in your one home gym and this is your one bar and you want to go bare steel, go ahead. When you're selling hundreds like I am, I don't want to deal with that. So one, they're all bright zinc finished, which I like because it still wears a bit, right? You still see where the hands go, where it sits on your back, but it won't rust. So that's that. And then the first bar, we just call it our standard Olympic bar. It's a 28.5 millimeter. Basically, my thought was, how do you get a bar that's the most versatile? So it's got weightlifting marks, powerlifting marks. It's 28.5. So like, generally women like a 28.5 a little bit better. Deadlifters like it a little bit better because there's more flex in it. But, it's still tensile strength and all that stuff of a power bar. So that was the first one we released and does really well. And then everyone, once you get into this, everyone just thinks you can make anything out of thin air. So it's like, when's your power bar coming? 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 And and then we released what we call the core bar. That's 29 millimeter, powerlifting marks only, and a much more aggressive knurl. And that bar now is kind of really taken off. More people have used it and talked about it. And so there's that. And then we have a 33-pound bar, mainly just because, a lot of my clients do come in through the starting strength world. And so, the people that are thinking about progressive overload, the 60-year-old lady, needs the lighter bar. That's actually what's behind me here. We call it the Audrey bar because it was about the time my mother started lifting that we came out with it. So my mom's name is Audrey. So
cool. Yeah, I figured.
Make mom happy.
That's awesome. And I definitely feel you with there are a lot of bare steel enthusiasts out there, or at least they're really loud on the internet, right? But yeah, I've had plenty of experience. Even as in Indiana, it gets pretty humid in the summer, and those bars just rust so quickly.
It's so quick.
Yeah, and I'm sure most people buying them don't truly understand. So I bet you would have to deal with a ton of customer service.
Right. Well, that's the biggest thing is most people, when you're in the garage gym space and like what you do, you're on the Reddits, you're in the home gym community forums, everyone knows way too much about equipment, right? They know way too much. Like, stop nerding out. It's not that serious. Like, how about get your squat to 200 before you make these huge claims? Whatever, right? So you think everyone's like that. But the majority of your consumers know nothing. They're like, will this fit 2-inch bar? Like, is this Olympic set? Where are dumbbells? It's like, all this stuff in the chat. And so that's where I've learned, or I think what I've tried to do is take like everything that I've learned and wanted from equipment, from coaching the general public, right? Not necessarily from coaching, strongmen and powerlifters, but like from coaching the general public and saying, okay, how do I make something that someone can buy at one time and like it works for them forever? And so, it's not a ton of specialty stuff. It's like very basic, for the person that wants it, and very, nice, and you pay a premium for it, right? But it's, I tell people all the time, they ask about price. I'm like, you want, there's cheaper options out there. It's just not me. Like, not everyone wants to drive a Mercedes. You can drive something else. I don't drive a Mercedes, I drive a Chevy, but you get the analogy.
I get it. Yeah, that totally makes sense. Let's move on to the future. I'm going to guess and say, like, the future of the industry, like, what you're trying to do is pretty much get more people active, from what it sounds like. Other than, like, just trying to get more people active, do you see, which would ultimately benefit society as a whole, do you see any other shifts that may come along within the industry? Maybe you could take this wherever you'd like. American fitness or equipment. Yeah.
Sure. Yeah, I think a couple things. Like, I think a lot of the Globo gyms, I do think they'll come back, big gyms, big commercial gyms. I think they'll come back, and a lot already are. But I just think the kind of regular habit of, hey, I'm paid $20 a month over here, even if I go or I don't go, I'm a gym member. It's just like with work from home. Like, yes, people are going back to the office, but I can't tell you like how many people, as you've experienced, I go back in the office one day a week now, right? So there's this whole like home movement that I think is going to stay, or so there's that. And then I think like boutique fitness is actually going to like come up, like small spaces where people pay a bit more. It's kind of my thing. So I've noticed, we're back up to kind of like our numbers before all this happened. But mainly, like with the majority of new people, because all my serious lifters that had lifted, in my gyms for 3 years, they weren't going to not lift. They believed in lifting. So what they do? They got a home gym, and so now it's like, Grant's back open, but like right next to my bedroom or whatever. Like, why would I go? And I totally get that. So I think that's going to stay for a while. I don't know forever. And I just think. I'm a barbell guy, a barbell training guy, but I don't think the tech smart stuff is the future at all. I think it's trendy. I think it's a fad. I think people think it's cool. I think Peloton rose, so then everyone's like, we'll do this for, whatever it is. I don't think that lasts. And also because I don't think it's like as effective. So, yeah, our goal is, I'm real passionate about like getting people stronger. I always say, and it was really cool to like have all those power lifters at our booth, but I could care less about taking your deadlift from 500 to 600. I would love to take your mom's deadlift from 0 to 100, literally and figuratively, right? Because that's like where the life-changing stuff happens. So, and again, I competed tons of powerlifting competitions. Like I'm an enthusiast in that side of things, but yeah, my goal, I just think like you have to do this. I remember telling my parents in their 60s, they came out and visit. My mom squatted down to a bench. I said, get up. She goes, get up. She goes to push her off her quads with her hand. I said, no, don't use your hand. She's able to get up, but barely. Run her whole life, looks fit. I'm like, at the time she's 60. I'm like, you're 60. You got 13 grandkids. I haven't even had kids yet. Like, you can't be pathetic. I'm not pushing you in a wheelchair. And it like resonated with her. And now she's deadlifted yesterday 235 for a single.
Oh man.
Yeah, crazy. So it's life-changing stuff. So, I try and use the equipment and the coaching, all in kind of like, hey, you can make some really good decisions here, and what you purchase and then what you do with it.
So how long did it take her to get to that deadlift?
So she walked in here in August of 19. Then she went back home. She was on the fence. I introduced her to a coach in South Carolina. It was an hour drive. And I told her, if you'll drive there twice a week until Christmas, I'll come home for you at Christmas and I'll build you a whole home gym.
Mm-hmm.
They were on the fence, kind of back and forth, and then I kept. But my dad was like interested. He just deadlifted 350 and squatted 300 this weekend. My dad was interested. He was coming off a knee replacement. He was like a little bit scared, but I knew, I was like, if Mom goes, Dad will go. So I kind of finally got Mom. She was like, you know what, I'm gonna go. And so my dad was like, no, I'm not going. And then the day that she actually went to left, he's like, oh, I'll come. So they went, and then they liked their coach a lot, and so they had a good time. And then I just knew if they'll go like 5 times, they'll actually feel results, and that'll keep them going. And so they did, and man, they just got rolling. So October of 19, to answer your question, is when they started lifting twice a week with a coach. I came home at Christmas that year. I built them a whole rig. They didn't even understand what I was doing. I didn't even understand what I was doing for them because I didn't know what we were all about to live through. But like all during 2020, they would message me and say, "We are so thankful that like you made us this," because no one could get equipment. So then, I mean, I think out of that time, they might have missed like 2 workouts in 2.5 years. So they've been really rigid about it. And she deadlifted 225 in November of last year. So about 2 years took her to like kind of get to there. And then now she's understanding like, oh, like you get up and now like it takes 6 months to make progress, right? Rather than, really quickly. So yeah, it's been really good for them. And I showcase them all the time just because I think it's important. And the only problem with barbells is like most people are scared of them. They just picture powerlifters. And I love powerlifters, but like that's all they picture in their mind. And they don't think it's for them or that they could do it, or they think they're going to get hurt. I tweeted this morning, my 11-year-old niece was in town, and so she came in the gym while I was coaching, and so we set up 40 pounds or something. And like I taught her, to deadlift, and she deadlifts for 5, actually like flawless technique. And then immediately like all the comments are like, kids can't be lifting weights. And I was just like, it's really interesting. Like, why do people think that? And obviously I don't think like young kids pre-pubescent should be doing, a bunch of progressive overload. But just from a standpoint of like, okay, you think it's okay for them to like run and play soccer, to like swing this baseball bat, to, pick these things up. But like the minute they like go to do a barbell, it's like, whoa! And like, I don't know. I don't understand that.
Yeah, these myths that just somehow go on from generation to generation. So 2022 for Strength Co., how's that looking for you? Are you kind of just looking to perfect what you're doing now, or are there new products you want to add this year? Just curious.
Yeah, so the 35's coming, this year. Enough people wanted it. I never saw the need for it, right? Because you have 10s and 25s. I get it. Most people want a set. But what I learned as a business owner is like, hey, if you actually want to compete with your competitors, you have to provide the same kind of deal. And there's enough people that want it because people want to be able to go to one place, get everything. So the 35's coming out. It's going to be nice. We just poured the first ones yesterday. They'll go to E-Code and Machining. I'll probably have some it's March. Probably first week of May. The 35 will launch, the first round of those. I've tried a 0.75 a few times, and they thought the casting was too small, but we kind of redesigned it, so I have that to them now. I'd like to do a 0.75. I've been doing a ton trying to find coatings, and again, I like the idea of something colored, right, or having a color option, but I just haven't found anything that makes any sense there. And the other thing is, outside of the 2 new weights, I just want more distribution centers. Because here's the thing that you have to remember. Like, let's say anytime you have multiple variants of something, well, I'm shipping this all over the country. So it's like you're in Florida and you want this. Well, it's coming from here, but I'm out of 2.5s at Georgia. So that's got to come out of over here. So like, and production-wise, you always got to be thinking, what do these warehouses need? And then, you're looking at like, okay, where are my big states, big order states, where do I get product? everyone wants to pick up, which like I get, but like for instance, my place in Georgia is like, we don't do pickups. We don't let people come into our facility or whatever. So it's all kind of stuff. So 2022, continuing, Texas will open up as a shipping facility. Yeah, trying to continue to kind of make shipping costs better. I think we kind of got down the plate line. We're going to come out with a bar around Memorial Day. That's going to be pretty cool. I won't say all the details on it now, but it's coming out on Memorial Day, and like the proceeds go to the Semper Fi Fund. So that's kind of the deal, but it's going to be a cool bar. Yeah, I think so. Continue the gyms and the coach services we provide, but like definitely the plates. We're going to be in a couple more expos. We got San Diego coming up towards the end of this year. Next year at the Arnold, we've already talked about, kind of doing like a joint booth, doing a bigger deal, and kind of having a power cage in there and making more options, because people seem to really like, they like to come and spectate and see all that stuff. And there really wasn't, unless you were like competing, there really wasn't any other place to do it. So we'll do something like that again. Yeah,
that was definitely the highlight. So would you say the biggest issue you face is just trying to figure out where to store everything for shipping?
Yeah. I mean, I guess the biggest, the logistics are like my if you wanted to know my issues, I think in 2022, it's gas prices, it's fuel prices. Like I don't want to raise prices, but my energy surcharges at the foundry have gone up and up and up and up. And now with fuel going, all this stuff has to get trucked, So you load 44,000 pounds in Waupaca, Wisconsin, and you drive it 2 hours south to Appleton. Well, that's like, a $5,000 expense, or was. Originally it was like 25. Then now it's $5,000. What does that look like with gas at $6 a gallon? And then it gets, machined. By the way, all their stuff, running off of fuel, prices are going up in the machine shop, and then you truck it from there to Racine. So for me, that's where I guess you would say concern. So that's why I think the shipping deal is how you fix that. Is the more distributed your product is, it ends up costing more to me because I got to distribute it, but the savings or more sales because you're paying less shipping. So that's kind of like what I see. I mean, Cura gets up, price of tape is up, and I don't see any of this coming down. I mean, people talk about the supply chain all the time, but I mean, if you've messed with it or know it at all, it's like, what happened? You had the whole world switch their lifestyle, and they started working from home. So like all the imports orders, I have a couple of clients that are in the industry, like quadrupled 5 times, desk, chairs, all that stuff. So like, I don't know how long it's going to be till you can like get a Chinese cast iron plate. So, which is good for me, right? That would be what I think what my concern would be is, trying to keep the price point where it is. Yeah.
Got it. Are you able to think 5 years ahead? Do you have any predictions as to where you think Strength Co. will be in 5 years?
Yeah. So, I mean, well, if 2 years feels like a day, then I guess in like 2 days we'll find out where we're at. But I definitely see the plates continuing and kind of being our biggest deal on the equipment side. There's a lot of untapped stuff with being in more gyms. Like we're in all the starting strength gyms, which is good, and we're in like various gyms around the country. But getting into gym lines, we bid on some stuff for some military bases. As a veteran-owned company, you can get GSA certified and do that. So I'd really like to do that. I think there's good options with like universities, and doing that sort of thing. So I think the expansion of plates and like bars and dollars and plates, goes with that. I really like the plate because I mean, I say this and I'm obviously biased, but everyone says like these are actually like the nicest plate. But like when people get them, they're like, oh, this is like actually the best. And so if you look at our reviews, like a most common review is like, wow, this costs a lot, but this is so nice. And that's like, you couldn't give me a better compliment. It's like, so yeah, expanding that would be, huge. And kind of what I see, plate line expansion.
Got it. It's interesting.
Maybe kilograms.
Okay. Yeah. It is just interesting because you look at the plate and it's durable. It's, like you mentioned, a good mix of like thin, but you're able to also grab it, which is huge for a lot of people, specifically home gym owners with people, like multiple types of people lifting. I guess,
right.
But I mean, you know what I'm saying? It's got to be hard to like try and continually improve that. So It's interesting that you say, "Oh, yeah, there's a lot of other ways we can."
I mean, I think there's
you
other,
know.
yeah, I think there's other basically like sales channels.
Got it.
That's what I think.
Okay.
So I don't know that the plate. I view my plate like a cast iron pan. I remember the first time walking into the foundry and like all these cast iron pans being poured, and me being like, my cast iron pan was literally my uncle's, and my cast iron pot was my grandmother's, and they were given to me. I've never had to buy a cast iron pan. Why would I? But here they are by the tens of thousands being poured. And like, when was the last time there was a design update to the cast iron pan?
Right.
So, yeah. But so I think it's more like tweaks maybe in order for sales or, custom logoing and stuff like that.
Okay. Cool.
Yeah. And then I mean, we've done a little bit of research into steel calibrated. That's probably our like number 2 question we get. It's possible. It's just a price point for U.S. made calibrated. It's going to be up there. So I don't know how much of that could do. So we're doing we're having some testing, doing some drawings, and like seeing what's possible. But that's a question we get all the time because I guess you can't get steel calibrated plates right now.
You really don't know. You can't really predict, like, is the steel prices going to continue going up or is it going to go down back to normal? Yeah. So that has to make it tough to predict. All right. And then really the last question I have here, and it's kind of obvious just with you being a veteran, but it'd be awesome to hear from you as to just why USA manufacturing is so important to you. And then also just how significant is actually sourcing the raw materials from this country.
Right. Yeah, I mean, I think part of me, I've kind of always wanted to buy American even before I did this. Like all our T-shirts are like made in Los Angeles. I remember when I opened the gym, I wanted to get our first line of T-shirts. Like you can't find a USA made T-shirt. Like and if you can, it's like one variant from this and it fits like junk. So I always kind of wanted to buy American, and maybe that's a sense of patriotism. Maybe that's just an idea of like, hey, I know this helps my country. Why would I buy somewhere else when like I can buy local? But then as I've gotten into it, it's like amazing. I mean, we're still a small company, right? And it's like the amount of like jobs that we've created and the amount of people that are working, and doing stuff, it's crazy. And so you really start to, and I'm not just talking about like the Strength Co. hiring like for their warehouses, but like, these other facilities we have, truck drivers, the foundry itself hiring people, this machine shop, our E-Coat facility, boom, they've done plates before. Now we're in there making plates, and as you do that, I think for me, that's probably like the coolest is seeing like what a difference it has, what an impact it has. I mean, I just often am like, what a country, what a country, like what pastor's kid from South Carolina likes barbells is like, we're going to manufacture plates in America, and it's possible. And it is tough to source the materials, right? Because you could get imported iron, you could get pig iron, you could, with everything you can import, and so it costs more. But I think there's a group of people that view this similar to me, and there is, like, they've proven that there is. They're like, hey, you know what? This costs more, but it's made here. I want it. And so, yeah, I think it's that's kind of my views on it.
Awesome. There was one more question from the Massonomics Discord channel that was just, who the hell do you think you are?
Well, I guess to make the Massonomics Discord happy, some people have referred to me of the Buddy Caps of our generation. I think it's too high a compliment, but I'm sure they'll get a kick out of that.
That's pretty cool. All right, man. Well, I'll close it. Is there anything else you want to add?
No, I think just, check us out, www.thestrength.co. You can access the gym pages from there, the store from there. If you're interested in the 35s, there's an email notification link you can click on, so the minute they launch, you'll know. We're pretty active on YouTube, Instagram, all that stuff. I'm probably personally the most active on Twitter. If people want free form checks and stuff, I say if you post it publicly, I'll take a look and comment on there. I'm Grant SSC on Twitter. The Strength Co's on Twitter too. We're pretty active on there. Besides that, no, it's been great. Appreciate it. Thank you so much for coming by at the Arnold. You guys' accounts really are what kind of helped us get off and let people know that we exist. And so it means a lot to us. When you come by, take the time, look at the product, talk to us, and actually, converse about what's going on. So thanks for that. Thanks for having me on. Like, I really appreciate it.
Well, yeah, right back at you. Thanks so much for taking the time. Respect you for what you're doing and what you've done. So,
thanks, man.
all right. Yeah, let's close it.
Later.